Greetings and salutations, and once again, it is I, the Rabbit Inspector, yet again with another video. And this one is about why RPGs are my favorite genre. Now, I like all type of genres. I like first-person shooters. I like platformers. I like action games. I like adventure games. I like weird indie games and all of that nature. But the main one that I always come back to, that always interests me, that it seems like has been in my mind since probably back in the mid '90s, that has always just made me gravitate towards, has always been role-playing games. And it's kind of crazy how it started out with me with role playing games. I never knew what a role playing game was back in the mid '90s. Obviously, I was really young and I didn't really know any difference of determining exactly what genres were what in the gaming industry because it wasn't as flourished back then, I guess you could say, as it is today. But it was well on its way to get there. And I believe the first one that I ever played was that I can recall was I believe it was Chrono Trigger. And when I played Chrono Trigger back on the Super Nintendo, it just really just blew my mind as to how gorgeous it was, how honest to goodness the sprites was, the artwork, the gameplay mechanics, the battle system, the story, the characters, and everything. And another thing that I didn't know about until later on down the road is how it had multiple endings. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And the thing is, though, is you could actually reach one of these multiple endings at like any part in the story, which is crazy. I can't recall. I think maybe you had to beat it once and then maybe go back again, and then you could have like multiple timelines to go and get like multiple endings depending on where you went to fight Lavos, which was the main bad guy. Um, or maybe it happened at any point in time throughout the main game. I honestly can't recall, so forgive me for that. So whatever. But the I really loved it. I really liked it. I remember I rented it from a video store, and I played it, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty sweet. And it was always one of those games that always stuck in the back of my mind, like one day I want to own this thing. And flash forward a few years, and of course it released on the PS1, and I got it. The loading times were atrocious, but I did own it and I did have it. I didn't have it on Super Nintendo because we didn't have the money back then, or at least obviously I was young, so I wasn't making money, and my dad he would buy me games every now and then, and my mother would as well, but it never really got to that point where I was buying that specific game that I wanted, but I had many other RPGs that I was getting at the time, and so it came to the point to where as I got it on PS1, I played it, I loved it, all of that, and I was just like, these load times are just crazy. But I still stuck along with it, and then finally I ended up getting it again on Nintendo DS. Load times obviously much better. It was just like the NES and ES version, but it had like an extra dungeon or something added to it, and like some other extra little things like monster hunting or something. I can't stand that monster collecting crap in RPGs. I never bother with it. Um, but anyways, I think that was probably the main RPG that really got me into RPGs in the first place. And of course, then I went on to Final Fantasy VII, which is another one of my favorite RPGs of all time. It gets hate, but then again, it gets love, And the announcement of the remake that's coming out, we don't know when it's coming out, but I'm gonna freaking buy it. I may even buy it 3 times. I may get 2 physical versions and the digital version to just say that I have it. The physical versions, one of them I'll open up and play, and the other one will be sealed. Because it may be some money later on in the future as time goes on. Um, but yeah, the thing that now to really get into the whole logistics side of RPGs and why I really like them has to do with the fact that it's just regardless of whether it's like fantasy or regardless of whether it's sci-fi, whichever one it is, if the world grabs me, if the characters grab me, if the story grabs me, if the gameplay grabs me, all of that, it's just absolutely amazing. I mean, it truly is. I have so many RPGs that I could claim that I love. I mean, I love the Dragon Age series. Of course, that's a Western RPG, like action RPG. I love the Dragon Age series. I love the Mass Effect series. Let's see. I love Legend of Legaia back on PS1. I love Final Fantasy IX, which I haven't completed Final Fantasy IX yet. I think I came close to it at one point, but I haven't completed it. Let's see. What are some other ones right off the top of my head? Uh, Radiant Historia on the Nintendo DS. I really love that one. I think there was one time where I was actually at my ex girlfriend's place, and I was on my Nintendo DS for I think 6 or 7 hours straight playing it. Honestly, it was just that addictive. It was just that honest to goodness and fun, and that also brings back the whole thing with Chrono Trigger. It had that time traveling aspect the like Chrono Trigger did, and that was another thing that really gravitated me towards it was because oh man, this just really brings back nostalgic memories for me. And when I got it, I was playing it, and it wasn't exactly the same as Chrono Trigger in terms of time traveling. It seemed like, but it was still really awesome to go and explore these multiple timelines and see how things would play out if you chose this path or this path, and going back in time and taking the other path and going that way. So it was definitely something to truly enjoy. Some people liked it, some people don't. I honestly loved it, and I ended up getting the one that actually came with the soundtrack, which here in America we're not as blessed, I guess you could say, as say maybe like Japan or Europe or something when it comes to getting collector's editions, especially when it comes to soundtracks. Because we'll get like a little sampler CD or something, and not the whole full soundtrack, and you have to buy the full soundtrack separately online, or whatever. And it's not really what you would want it to be, the whole entire soundtrack. So, anyways, to really get into uh, more into RPGs. Uh, of course, it's the story. The story can always determine, what really holds you in an RPG. I mean, you can see an RPG, you can look at the cover, you can look at the gameplay mechanics, you can look at videos online, other user reviews, critic reviews, anything like that, and you can tell whether or not you would like it to get into it. That doesn't necessarily mean the story would grab you. And some people will say stories are great in certain RPGs, and some people say that stories are bad in other RPGs. It's all based upon personal preference and personal opinion. So the thing is, with me, I really focus towards the videos that I see, like with the characters and how they develop and how they evolve over time, and of course the story, how it develops and evolve over time. But just being able to go out and explore those very imaginative worlds is just beyond belief of how people can get so incredibly creative with the worlds they create, with the characters they create, especially with the battle systems. Which, speaking of battle systems, one of my favorite battle systems in RPGs is from the Tales of series, like Tales of Legendia, Tales of the Abyss, Tales of Zestiria, all of those. I love that series as well. It's definitely one of my favorite series, and that has kind of had one specific battle system that has gone by, but it's always mixed it up. It seems iteration after iteration, and when I kind of look more into RPGs and I look at the one second. Sorry about that. My phone looks like it was about ready to fall off or something there. I kind of had to readjust it a bit to try to get it just right. I didn't want it to fall over and then you think the roof caved in or something. Um, but I had to grab it right then and there. But anyways, yeah, when it boils down to RPGs, uh, I kind of lost my train of thought a bit because I had to catch my phone. But if you kind of really look more into uh, what's how deep these things can get. I mean, seriously, you have some RPGs out there that are casual. You have other RPGs out there that are really deep. And for example, one casual RPG that is actually one of my favorite PlayStation 4 games, which you'll see some of my videos that I have on here, of just some random gameplay videos, just because I felt like posting them up there, is from Fat Princess Adventures. And it's very casual. From checkpoint to checkpoint, you can choose from 4 different classes, whether it's engineer, archer, wizard, or warrior. Things like that, and they have like a couple different special abilities and different items and armor and weapons you can get while you're leveling up. Which the level up process isn't that deep. You just go up from level to level, and I guess you'll probably uh, gain health as time goes on, and strength and things of that nature. But you go right along. The story is simple. The game is a little short, but I mean overall the humor is really awesome in it, and just the fact of being able to go through these little cutesy worlds and hack and slash these little creatures all up to bits is just amazing. I just think it's really hilarious because it's funny because they actually have like a violence meter on there, whether you want it to be awful, bloody, or none. Of course, which one do you think I chose? Obviously, it's awful, and it's just insane on how bloody and crazy it can get. But that is one example of being a casual RPG. But like when it comes to a much deeper RPG, Divinity Original Sin, which I got on PlayStation 4, is definitely deep. I mean, when it comes to going through your characters and going through how you want their statistics to be and what abilities you want them to have, and also in battle as well when it comes to, say, if you're out in a rainstorm or something and you end up using like an electrical shock spell, or if somebody has the ability to shoot out lightning or something, then you can actually cause more damage to your enemy. Or if you end up, say, breaking open some barrels that have tar or acid or something in them, if your enemies run across it, they'll get slow. Or if it's the acid, they'll burn. But there's a bunch of different things that you can actually use within the environment to be able to really get the most out of battle and get the most out of your characters and how you're building them up over time. And it pretty much is just like an open world. You can go one way and get slaughtered. You can go the other way, and you know that'll be the right way for you to go. So it's kind of just open up for you to explore to see exactly what's the best path for you to take, determining upon your characters and how you build them up and things of that nature. And let's see, Wasteland 2, for example, I also got that on PS4. That's another one that's pretty deep, as a matter of fact. And overall, I mean, the way that the main thing that I guess I kind of really look for when it also deals with RPGs is also the replayability as well. I mean, yeah, granted, some RPGs that you play could deal with the fact of you going in and just going through a short, well, not a short story. Some of them do have short stories, but a long story just on a real linear path. And some of them have an open world where you can go out and look and search the world and get side quests and do all of that while doing the main story as well. But I mean, that's that's one of the things I guess that kind of gets to me, is because I feel like I can always go back to those games, like say for Fallout 4, for example, which is one of my favorite games of all time. You can go out in the world, you can explore, you can go through the main story, you can go through side stories, you can do all of that, and I mean it really is something to definitely take in when it comes to the open world aspect. But then again, you go and you look at the linear aspect, like with JRPGs, but of course there's some open world JRPGs, but just speaking specifically for just our JRPGs that kind of have a linear path, it's really it can get really deep that way as well, because you get more invested in terms of dealing with characters and dealing with story and how they develop over time, instead of you probably just going out and say open world RPG and just going out and meeting random NPCs and talking to them and getting quests and this, that, and the other. And and I mean that's just that's another thing that kind of gets to me, especially with NPCs that don't really have any character except to just give you a side quest or whatever. That's another thing that kind of gets to me with especially JRPGs, or maybe just RPGs in general. Like if you have a silent protagonist, I can't freaking stand that. Some people say, "Oh well, yeah, you can have a silent protagonist and imagine that it's you." I don't imagine that it's me. I imagine it's some silent dude not saying anything, and he as a character is dull and boring, and I'm just playing out the role of savior of the world or whatever the story may be. But I mean, if my character actually has some personality and I get to choose that personality, like if I have dialogue choices or what voice to give him, then obviously that's really going to make a difference. I mean, at least for me it will, because it makes me feel like my character is alive. It doesn't just make me feel like he's just a blank slate and he's just standing there and just going around and doing the motions or whatever. But everybody's got their own preference, but it's whatever. Um, so anyways, that's pretty much my kind of thing when it boils down to RPGs, and I would definitely check your taters later, or is it later taters? Check your taters. Check your taters later. That doesn't sound too peachy. That sounds kind of dirty. But anyways, this is probably the longest. Maybe no, not the longest, or one of the longest. I guess you could say vlogs or whatever that I've done, but it's definitely not my longest one. That's what she said. I think the other one that I had was like 30 minutes long, dealing with Fat Princess Adventures or something like that. Which, by the way, I'm going to be getting other gameplay videos up as well for other games that I'm really going to be into. So definitely look forward to those. And I will check you taters later. I guess that'll be my outro now. Check you taters later, or later taters. I don't know. But I like taters. Taters, precious. Taters.